just neurodivergent things. Anyway, we're here for things. We're here for the state of the beast within. We're here to talk about werewolves. You are here to talk about werewolves. And I'm happy to help. I am happy to make this a reality. So let's make it a reality. All right, woo in chat. Let's get that woos going, y'all. Let's get the woos going. All right, let's start with some updates on Big Bad Con. I kind of talked about it before during my Big Bad Con haul stream, but if y'all weren't there for that, we're gonna recap a couple of things from Big Bad Con that are specifically related to the Beast Within. So in Big Bad Con, I volunteered not only as a panel room host, which is a ranger, I also volunteered to GM for a special event that they were running all weekend long called Games on Demand. You're the best, C. You are the best. Get yourself the nice merch. Get yourself some nice merch. Oh, ooh, new merch, C. Ooh, what's this? I'm looking respectfully. But yes, I volunteered on Games on Demand, and on Games on Demand, you have a menu of games that you run for players that come in. I desperately wanted to run The Beast Within. I was going to run a kaiju adventure of The Beast Within during Games on Demand. It was called The Rise of Rahu. I've talked about it on a previous State of the Beast Within. It is a kind of early narrative playtest. Thank you, C. That my Games on Demand were the best. Thank you. Rise of Rahu is kind of like my early narrative playtest for a supplement I want to release in the future. It was one of those things where I was taken by the spirit of my ADHD and creativity, and I just kind of had to get it out of me, even though I still have a whole game to develop. So I ran that, and luckily enough, we had folks that wanted to come in and play The Beast Within. We had one of our community members, Stray Toads, also known as Kestrel, who came in and joined to play the game. We have Kai, my beloved, as one of the players, as well as Jason from Probably Okay Games join us for the game. And this game was kind of like a really early playtest to see how a bunch of the aspects of the game would function. And the good updates are folks found the character gen to be straightforward and easy. Folks enjoyed aspects of wrath and used it. Thank you for redeeming a hydrate. I have a water right here. Thank you very much. Oh, that water is real cold. I forgot how cold water gets in this bottle. That was amazing. Thank you so much for the hydrate, Derek. So we had a pretty good character gen playtest. Folks were very... A sub. Thank you so much, Kirsten Spears, for your tier 1 subscription. Now you get access to all of our lovely emotes in chat, including Otso Scream and Otso Pop, which I love. I love these emotes so much. They are, courtesy of Hazarino, a furry artist streamer. You should go and check them out. They have a hyena persona, and it's great. But yeah, we had a really good playtest with character gen. We had a pretty good game as well. Folks were really engaged in many aspects of the gameplay. Immediate investment into the world. Incredible creative choices and things like that. And yeah, basically, all in all, the game went really well. I was actually really surprised. I was expecting to kind of come out of the playtest going, oh no, I've got a lot to work on. There's a lot of like mistakes going on. It's barely playable. But no, the game was mostly playable. I'm happy to announce the game was mostly playable. There are aspects of it, like really small things that need to have a bit more clarity and coherence written in, specifically around the duration of transformation, as well as the idea that the way character gen functions right now and the way character abilities look like now is you have your persona archetype, which is your human aspect of yourself, and you have the beast archetypes, which show kind of like all of your beast abilities. Right now, the beast abilities are really static by tier. And one of the pieces of feedback I got was, hey, folks might want to play, an insect like werebeast, but they might want to fly rather than be phosphorescent. So it'd be nice to kind of like have that option to swap things around. And I heard that and I thought, well, that was one aspect I was kind of toying around with, but I wasn't sure if that was something that folks were interested in. But now that I know that we'll be moving into that direction of basically, instead of having static tiers of 3 abilities or so for each level you go up into Beast Within, we're going to have basically you get a number of points, and when you get that level up, you can choose which ability you want, instead of kind of just getting a bunch and maybe not resonating with all of them. You'll be able to pick ones that actually resonate with your character. So Hosting Beast Within update for the Big Bad Con. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in Big Bad Con that I learned. Well, in terms of like fulfillment, I had a chat with a representative from DriveThruRPG during Big Bad Con, and I was they heard me say the following, which was, yeah, I'm planning on manually handling fulfillment for all of you. And they reached over the table and were like, no, Val, no. I can help you. I can help you through DriveThruRPG with your fulfillment. Please do not try and do this by yourself. So they intervened on preventing me from making a terrible mistake. So keep your eyes peeled when fulfillment comes. That we'll probably be doing it through DriveThruRPG or Itch. We'll see which one is more accessible to me with the fact that I'm based in Malaysia. But yeah, we're working on how fulfillment's also going to look like in that regard. What else do I have to chat about for Big Bad Con? I think that's about it. I think that's basically it, which is pretty neat. Okay. With that, let's talk about playtesting. So as you all know, playtesting is now open. For those of y'all who missed the announcement earlier, !playtest will bring you to the playtesting link. It is a Google form. You just gotta type in your sign in, put in an email, answer some of the prompts in there, and we can get started on scheduling of playtesting. Now, when you look into the playtest interest form, there is a question that asks you, what playtests are you interested in? And I know that a lot of this makes sense to folks who have touched game design, but to other folks, it might just look like a load of gibberish. So here is me kind of breaking it down, what all of those mean. So we'll start with narrative and setting based playtests. What this means is I'm asking for folks to read aspects of lore and to tell me what they've internalized about it, what aspects about it they find interesting, or if there are gaps in the narrative or in the setup of the narrative that feel like egregious, right? That kind of feel like, oh, I don't really know what to do with that if I read this in a rule book, right? It feels like it's too open-ended. I might need a little bit more lore here. Things like that. So how that playtest would usually function is I kind of have a bunch of you, maybe in a set amount of time. I have y'all read a thing, and I ask for your immediate impressions and your feedback immediately after, to see what kind of aspects of the narrative and setting in terms of lore are things that folks want to read and have access to. So that's one aspect of the playtest. The second aspect of playtesting is the character generation playtest. I kind of alluded to it when I talked about the Big Bad Con update. This is basically, I give y'all guidelines, I give y'all the rules on how to generate your character. I leave you alone, and you generate a character based on the rules and the guidelines provided to you. And then I will ask for feedback on how coherent the instructions were, how easy it was to follow, whether it was generative, creatively generative. Did you feel inspired in the way that you were able to create characters? Is the character options given exciting or diverse or interesting? Or if there's a need for more types of abilities and things like that, and other such things. So that's what the character generation playtest is. The third one is combat and conflict resolution playtest. This is the mechanics. Oh, yeet. Sorry, buddy. I am yeeting you from it. Oh, jeez. Come on. Where are you? I wish my moderation wasn't absolutely terrible. There we go. Anyway, be gone, bot. Anyways. We do not play over here. I'm also doing a quick report. Thank you, y'all. Perfect. The report has been submitted. Be gone, bot. Yeet out of here. We're not having this bullshittery here. Alright, let me refresh chat now. Alrighty. Thank y'all, folks. Appreciate your patience with that. Alrighty. Anyways, hello. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. Where was I? I was talking about playtesting. Combat and conflict resolution playtests. Righty. So, with combat and conflict resolution, this is the mechanics. This is the playtest where I'm going to be asking folks, hey, we're going to be playing a game. I'll be running a little scenario for you based on whether it's combat or the conflict resolution. And we're going to play through how the game actually plays. So this is where you get to roll dice. You get to roll dice, you get to have a character, and I'll be running a thing for you, most likely. Or someone else might be running a thing for you that I've asked to run it so I can sit and observe. So that's what combat and conflict resolution playtest is. This is where I'll be asking feedback on how the game plays, how the dice rolls feel, how strong or weak do you feel the characters are, things like that. That's where that kind of playtesting comes in. Next, we have the GMing playtest. This is to my GMs out there. My wonderful, wonderful GMs. This is where I will ask for y'all to give me some feedback. I'll be showing you aspects and pages of the book, whether it is sample adventures, NPC lore sheets, things like that, and I will ask y'all for your opinion on it. Specifically, what would be helpful to you as a GM? So basically, it kind of looks like if I, for example, I set up Rehan of the Eclipse, who is one of the NPCs of this world. I give you all his lore sheets, his description, bits and parts of his storyline, links and factions that he's associated with. As well, maybe as one of the things I'm toying around with is having little like pieces of advice or guidance for GMs in the little boxes, saying stuff along the lines of, hey, if you're considering using Rehan in a campaign as a antagonist, here are some things to think about. Or like, oh, hey, I know that this part of the lore is left a little open-ended. Here's the chance for like your GMs to use ideas creatively and maybe put some suggestions forward. And basically, I give y'all all this kind of like stuff, as well as the game mastering chapter of the book, and ask y'all for your thoughts. If that is helpful, if there's aspects of game mastering that I've not included, things like that. Because I think it's very, very important for not just the player, but also for the GM to be able to navigate the rulebook and know exactly what information they get, and that the information they get is useful and helpful. So that's the plan. That's the plan and idea behind the GMing playtest. And finally, we have the stress testing playtest. Those for folks who are interested in the stress testing playtest, this is the playtest that will happen later, because this is the playtest that I'm going to do once I'm pretty solid with everything else, where I'm just probably going to ask for a volunteer of 4 to 5 people, to probably 5 people, a GM and 4 players, and I have y'all run a game or run a few games, play through it, and it is done with the expectation of I want to see y'all try and break the game, and see where the cracks in the game begin to show. And that's what stress testing is going to be. And I am not going to be really intervening on it. This is for me to kind of like watch and see if it's if there's like really, really strong weaknesses in the game, if there is any like blockages in the way that the game is coming through, things like that. And those are all the different playtests. As a reminder, if you want to get access to any of these things, just go ahead and sign up with exclamation point playtests. Once I get idea of who is in there, I will be signing up and sending you all an email. We're beginning the period of playtesting soon. I've already got a couple of folks signed up for some aspects of playtesting. So keep your eyes peeled for all of that. Fantastic, amazing. We are making great progress, and I'm gonna have water, which is a great reminder for you all to also have water. Which is another reason, if y'all are a part of my Discord, I'm trying to, the way I'm going to try and organize one of the playtests is to organize by like how I know the people, basically, because there's some folks I know from different servers. So I'm trying to do like, all right, if you're part of this server, y'all have very similar availabilities, so let's make a sign up or a time for playtesting where and do it by server, and have all of your like other folks that are playing with you be people in the same server. So if you're a part of my Discord server, it'll make it easier on me for y'all to be in the same server, because then I can sign you up faster. I can sign you up faster. Alrighty. With that, now that we've kind of covered all of that wonderful aspects of the playtest elements, do folks have any questions about playtest? I should probably ask that before we move on. Do folks have any questions? Well, I floof my hair a little bit because it's flattening out, and I'm like, please, manage yourself, hair. Okay. Folks, any questions about playtesting? If not, we'll talk about combat. And while we talk about combat, I'll set up the lovely sheet so y'all can have a good idea of what we're talking about here. Exciting stuff, can't wait. It's been a bit since I looked at the form, so I don't remember what I signed up for, but I can't wait. I believe you signed up for... I can go and check right now. I could go and tell you what you signed up for. Oh. So many people. All right. Question, individual. There we are. You signed up for everything but the GMing. You signed up for the rest. the narrative, the character gen, combat, conflict, and stress testing. But yeah, expect an email in your inbox before the end of this week. That's the timeline I'm working with, just to get stuff scheduled. We all know the greatest BBEG in any TTRPG is scheduling. Anyways, with that, y'all, I would love for us to get into some... Let me make sure the studio mode is working. Let's get into combat and the combat updates that I would like to share with all of you. There we go. So let's click off studio mode and let's turn on the Windows screen. Hello, welcome in everybody. I'm going to show you one of the incredible tools that I used while I was at Big Bad Con. This is the cheat sheet. So what I did was I created a fun cheat sheet for folks to use while we are talking about combat and while I was running it. Because this was a one-shot, it was for a convention, so there wasn't a lot of time to give time for folks to go and sit down and read the rules. So I just made a cheat sheet. I did have the rules on hand as well if clarification was needed, but it turned out to be completely fine. Also, I just realized my image is not showing up here, so just give me 2 seconds while I fix that really quick. I was like, hang on a second. Where's my funny little image? I want it. Where is my image? I really want it. But yeah, so I was saying a thing. Cheat sheets are very helpful. Those of y'all who are game designers and have combat aspects in your game, I highly recommend. Please do this. It will be very, very helpful, and you will thank me for it. You will thank me for mentioning this to you. Alrighty, there we go. Amazing. Now with that, let's talk about playtesting. Alright, studio mode, and back to the windowed screen. That's better, isn't it? This looks so much nicer. Anyway, cheat sheet. So, the way combat functions right now in The Beast Within is that because it is a narrative-first game, we're not doing reactions, we're not doing bonus actions, we're not doing any of that. What we are doing is doing one significant thing per turn. It's very Cypher, very IS, very Wild Sea, like a lot of other narrative-focused RPGs out there. So here are some of the options of actions in combat. They are attacking, whether it's melee or ranged, armed or unarmed. There is Guard, which is a fun ability for the defensive-minded. It is where you defend yourself, and what you do is any incoming attack that is meant to hit you, if you choose to defend, you get to reduce it by your metal score. So if your metal score is 2, you minus from your opponent's roll 2. If it's a 1, it's a 1. So for those, this is for my high defense babes out there. This is for my hardy people out there who want to play a tank. This is for you. I made this for you. Another ability, another action you can take in combat is using an ability. Whether this is an ability from your persona archetype or in your beast archetype, this is probably where you will use it. And then as part of your action in combat is your movement. Just to be able to move and make it easier for yourself to adjust and be in combat. Because I don't want to waste too much time in getting people to move or not move, right? Let's have the movement. Over here we have distances. This is part of combat, but not entirely. It also talks a lot about like other aspects of the gameplay. This is how distances work. We have melee, which is you're in immediate range. You're in combat range with this person. We have near, which is about 10 to 50 feet away from someone. Distance, which is more than near, but it's less than 100 foot. Far, which is greater than 100 feet, but less than 500 feet. And then finally, far away, which is beyond 500 feet. So these are how the distances function currently. I'm hoping to playtest this a little bit more to see if this is coherent. And if it makes sense, especially in a combat setting. And next, we get to talk about some really fun things. Status conditions. They have changed since the last time y'all might have seen them, especially if you were watching the Dragon's Gambit on Transplanar RPG. So we now have very, very specific meanings for all of the status conditions. So we have Bewildered, which means you have a -1 to actions for a turn. Oh, that's another thing. Status conditions only affect you for a turn. They don't stay on you unless unless you're knocked out. If you're knocked out, then you're knocked out until someone heals you. If you're downed until you stand up, right? Things like that. But a lot of these other ones, like Bewildered, Blinded, Staggered, they all only last for a turn. This is to prevent the thing that happens in D&D a lot, where you're constantly trying to do saving throws and then you just are stuck in it forever. And because of how swingy the D12 is, there's even greater need for me to not rely on saving throws to get folks out of status conditions. So Bewildered, this is a type of status condition where folks are feeling disoriented, things like that. You get -1 to your whatever actions you take. If you are blinded, you have -1 to sight checks. Staggered is a special condition. It is usually only induced by specific abilities or crits. It basically means you cannot take an action and your opponents get a +1 to their attack. Downed, you need movement to stand up. This just means you're lying flat on the ground. Restrained means you have no movement and you have -1 to any agility-based attacks, and your opponents have a +1 to attack you. Threatened is a new status condition that I have developed since Dragon's Gambit. This is to illustrate a scene where someone is able to intimidate you and put you in a position where you're feeling really threatened, but there's very few things you can do. So under the threatened condition, you have a -1 to attacks, and you will be faced with a difficult narrative choice. There's the knocked out status condition, which is self-explanatory. Your damage track has been filled and you are now unconscious. Terrified is you're frightened. Excuse me. With the terrified status condition, you get a -1 to your action, as well as your specifically any instinct-based tasks, because you're too scared to figure out what's going on. So you have a -1 to that. So those are the status conditions. On the topic of Berserk, because I know Derek brought it up earlier, it's not written here because I developed it actually on the morning of Friday morning of Big Bad Con, where I thought about an aspect of gameplay, where I thought, oh, do you want to be really, really neat and cool, actually, is if we get to play through this sort of, how do I explain this? Basically, what happens in the Rise of Rahu, without spoiling a ton of it, is players get access to a very special mineral that humans are dredging up from the ocean. And I realized the morning of that my players might want to interact with that item. I had to keep in mind the feral goblin players that might want to put that in their mouth. So I created a condition called Berserk. And it is an homage to not only players who want to put things in their mouths, but it's also an homage to Nordic belief, specifically the idea of the Berserker, which are Nordic warriors that in this sort of like frenzy they put themselves in, they are able to kind of transform themselves into berserking bears. That's where that's where like the position of like the bear warrior as well as like berserking like came into aspects of Nordic mythology as well as in general terminology. And it is very, very neat. Me, I would put things in my mouth in game. I did it with a cursed heart in my friend Stratton Space campaign. This is why I write rules like this. It's because I know these players exist and I need to give the GM something to hold on to. I gotta give them something to hold on to, right? Okay. And so with that, I came up with a berserk condition, which basically I didn't write it down here. I have it in my my iPad somewhere. What it basically boils down to is that you get a ton of offensive benefits. You get a ton of offensive benefits. It drains your wrath. And you do take like a health penalty for it. So that is how Berserk works. That is something I want to playtest a bit more because I just, again, quite literally made it the morning of my game. But I'm looking forward to kind of like playing around with that a little bit more. Amazing. Listen, I want to give buffs that make a lot of sense, right? A type of debuff I was thinking of having for the Berserk mode is to increase the time it takes to recover, so you don't immediately get access to healing immediately after. You don't get access to that. So if you're going to be berserked, you gotta make sure you finish the fight now. You better finish it, or else you're gonna be in a heap of trouble after, and with very few avenues on how to get out of there. Amazing. All right, with that, let's talk about some other developments in combat, specifically damage, that I haven't put in a fine, beautiful thing. I have it written out here in my trusty little notebook, because one of the things that came out of my playtests in Big Bad Con, as well as from the Dragon's Gambit as well, it was something that I've kind of been thinking about a lot, is combat didn't feel dangerous enough. I realized that maybe combat isn't feeling as dangerous as it needed to feel. It wasn't feeling as thrilling as it needed to feel. So I was placed in this kind of position where I had to think about, okay, if I cannot be building stat blocks for enemies that do a ton of damage even in the early game, right? Because then it makes it hard for players to feel the progression of danger. So when I thought about that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna need that kind of like level of danger. So what I did was I wrote out 3 options of how damage is going to work in this game. The first one was how it was working. It was that you have 3 injuries. Basically, you have a pool of a damage track rather, and 3 injuries equals to 1 wound. If you sustain 3 wounds, you get knocked out. So what this essentially means is you have to take 9 damage before you get knocked out, which is quite a lot of damage, considering in this combat you get to do 1 significant thing per turn. So it either meant that combat's going to drag on a little bit, especially when folks get better abilities. It also meant that it was a little bit more static. You don't get to see that growth or development on the like HP damage track side of it. And it also meant that like GMs kind of had to make things really, really dangerous pretty early on. And it's hard to balance. So then I thought, okay, option 1 doesn't sound super great. Let me think about other options. And that helped me conceptualize option 2, in which, and I will show y'all my idea in a second, when I have over here. Okay, so please do not judge. I just wanted to show y'all the wheel just so y'all can understand where I'm coming from a little bit. So this is the damage wheel, right? So this is the damage wheel. So the idea is, in total, if you were to get to full levels, right? You get to the highest tier, this will be a 12-part wheel of your health. Each section, which is each time you grow, is split into 3 parts, right? So a quadrant, right? So at tier 1, you will get access to this quadrant. 1, 2, and 3, right? At tier 2, at tier 2, you get access to the next. And then 3, and then 4. And you get more and more aspects of that HP. Which is really, really fun, because once you hit tier 5, the idea is we can, instead of giving you additional HP, we give you an interesting buff that you can choose. Whether that's like a video game-esque like invulnerability shield that gets broken in the first attack that hits you, or if it's some sort of like additional damage, things like that. But the idea is that we start off pretty early with the 3, which makes things more dangerous for you, because it means it just takes 3 hits before you are in danger, or before you get knocked out, right? Which makes things a little bit more dangerous. And it just gives us more room to play around, because we can actually enjoy the ramping up of danger as well as the ramping up of strength as you grow and develop. And it does make combat more interesting, and it gives you more room. It gives me, as a game designer, more room to play with in terms of mechanics, because now I can introduce abilities that play around with the idea of this damage wheel, whether that is buffs, debuffs, and other such things that can make this like more interesting. Like, let's say you want to play a character that because I know some of y'all are unhinged players that would want to like, hey, what if I use one of my damage wheels to restore my spirit, right? This would be a great way to do it, right? And it kind of like shows you the fraction of the cost, because that can be how the math would work is, hey, if you want to get spirit, this much of spirit, you need to sacrifice this much of your wheel, right? And this is where your fractions need to get good, right? But yeah, anyway, this is the second option. What? I would never sack HP for stuff. I don't know what you mean. I know who you all are. I know who you are because I'm that player. I'm the player that will do that. I am Mr. Valiant Knife Block Dorian, and by God will I take the devil's bargains. Yeah, so that is the second option. Additionally, in the second option, an idea that this leaves room for is the potential to add a scarring mechanic, in which you can remove a point of damage if you can tell me how you have developed a mental, physical, emotional scar from it, storytelling wise. So because that's a mechanic I've been wanting for a while, but I didn't know how to put it in. So this would be the way for me to have that in. The third option was to do, again, the same 12-part wheel, except we're more lenient. We start with 6. And then instead of having every tier you get something, you get one, so you start off with 6, and then you get an additional 3 at tier 3, and you get an additional 3 at tier 5. I am not a huge fan of this option. It was just kind of like something while I was kind of like brainstorming to see all the different options. Its benefits would be that it's kind of like an in-between of the first 2 options. It does show some development and growth, but it is not as dangerous and vulnerable. And I would argue that even the development and growth doesn't feel as good as a 3, 6, 9, 12 growth system. So after kind of like ruminating over this, I am moving for the option 2 section of this. I'll be doing the 12-part wheel with the 3, 6, 9, 12 development structure, and playing around with the idea of a scarring mechanic, different shields, as well as other mechanics that can play around with the idea of using health to fuel actions and things like that. But yeah, those are the damage updates that I wanted to, the combat and damage updates that I wanted to share with you all. And with that, I'm just double checking if there's anything else I wanted to share with you all for all the different types of stuff. No, that is about it for this State of the Beast Within. That's the stuff that I had planned to talk about. I just wanted to make sure that we got a State of the Beast Within before the end of the month, considering I hadn't done one yet. And that is about the stuff that I wanted to cover. This is now the time where we open the floor for questions. Whether it's questions about specifically any stuff that I've spoken about, general stuff about the Beast Within, as well as any game design questions that you wanted to throw into the chat. It is now open Q&A time. Feel free to throw your questions into chat while I close some stuff. Oh, this music's kind of fun. Yes, let me know your questions in the chat while I have some water to hydrate myself. I'm very curious as to how a D12 is swingy. What do you mean by that? So when someone refers to a die as swingy, they mean it to be that there's a lot of range of it's a lot of range between like passing and failure, right? So for example, let me get a dice tray so I can show you. And the reason why D12s are considered very swingy is because unlike a D20 or a D6, the mathematical ratio of success is not as high, which means there's so when you roll a D12, there's a higher likelihood of you rolling a lot of low numbers comparison to like a D6, right? Which is why a lot of people love using D6 as a way to develop the games. Look at WildC, look at PBTA. And these are systems that use these are systems that like to have like gradients of success. So that's what I mean by calling it swingy. So, you know, mathematically, a D20 can also be considered as swingy, but the way that D&D and like Pathfinder and all these other games that use a D20 system surmounts the idea of how swingy a D20 is by introducing the idea of DCs. So instead of having a static higher number be the success rate, kind of similar to like PBTA, where like, oh, this number and this number means a success, they introduce DCs where the GM decides how difficult this thing needs to be. So that way, you know, if something's pretty easy, call it DC 11, like call it DC 10, it means that players have a 50-50 chance of rolling it, not counting like stats and modifiers, right? So that's what I mean by swingy. I mean swingy by like the D12 on its own has a huge range in which it is able to kind of like swing from one side to another. Here's my D12s, which I love. These D12s are fabulous. Got them in Big Back Con. So like right now, I am rolling. I rolled a 6, rolled a 12, and I rolled a 1. And I rolled an 8, then I rolled a 9, I rolled a 3, rolled a 2. You see, it's like the way it swings, it's not as kind of like predictable maybe as a D6. The ratio is not as standardized. There's a lot of swing that it can do. Because literally one of the first questions I was asked by Jason from probably OK Games was, hey, why the D12 and not something like a D6, which is, you know, basically a more reliable, if it's mathematically like a 2D6 might be more reliable for you than a D12. And I told him like, oh, the main reason is because I like D12s. I think they're underutilized. I think, you know, there is a way, I truly believe there is a way for folks to be able to use them in an effective way, and I want to use them in a more effective way. And that's why I'm developing this system. Oh, I rolled another 1. But yeah, that's what I mean by swingy. It is a game design term to kind of like talk about how the rate of success and failure feel on a particular die. I hope that answers it, by the way. I know that was a very long-winded answer. Let me know your thoughts. Also, another update I was going to give you all is I will be uploading these to YouTube. There may come a time where I do like this State of the Beast Within, and then I do like an actual YouTube video friendly version of the State of the Beast Within. But that will require me to kind of figure out how to do recordings like that. So I will have to sit down and figure that out. Gotcha, that makes sense, and thank you. I'm fiddling with that alt D&D thing, considering using D12 as the main die myself. Yes, so that's something you need to consider with the D12, is how swingy it is. So for example, with the Beast Within, the way that I've combated that, or am attempting to combat it, is the fact that I have the Wrath mechanic, right? I have Wrath that incentivizes failure. So that way, if a player fails, it doesn't feel as bad. And not only that, whenever players fail critically, that means they roll a 1 on the die, they get 2 Wrath points. So even in critical failure, there is this kind of like space for growth, right? It doesn't feel as bad because you can use Wrath later. So that's Wrath. I also try to combat it by like having the numbers equate to different successes to see how that feels. What else have I done to combat that? I try to give bonuses wherever I can to help things not feel as bad during failure, or that to balance out the success rate. I've also been given feedback during Big Bad Con, but that's something I forgot to mention earlier. One of the aspects of feedback I got during the Big Bad Con playtest is the idea that advantages give dice rolls the equivalent of like a +3. So I will now, in crafting my abilities, be utilizing that math into how I determine how strong an ability is. Yes, I have mentioned that before, but yeah, that's how I'm trying to like counteract the D12, and that was really good feedback. It's fantastic feedback, and I highly recommend. Amazing. Yeah, let me know if folks have any other questions. I keep staring at these D12s. They're very, very pretty. I really like this one because of how shiny it is. Come on. There we go. Isn't that gorgeous? I can't wait to run more Beasts Within so I can play with these dice, is all I'm saying. Just gonna chuck them in here. Doop. Alrighty. Amazing. Any other questions, folks? Before we begin wrapping up for the evening. I know it's the shortest stream. I appreciate you all being here regardless, even though it's the shortest stream. Which is why I'm opening the floor to any questions. Who is adding me right now? Ah, I see that Derek has joined our Discord. Welcome in. Welcome in, Derek, to our Discord. We are very chill over here. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Alrighty, gang. With that, I think we can wrap up the State of the Beast Within.